Thanks for watching. Today we're doing something cool, I think. So we're taking a look at an on-road car. I'm really not one to have a lot of on-road cars at all, but this thing is really close to my heart. This is the latest rendition of the Hoonicorn, which is a vehicle back in the day. It was made by RTR. Ken Block was driving this thing through the streets of LA. You might have seen me build a 5th scale Hoonicorn the week after they released Gymkhana 7, just because I was so incredibly taken with that video and with the way that the car looked, that I just needed to have one. After that, HPI has released one, and right now Team Associated has released the very latest version of the Hoonicorn. It has two huge Garrett turbos sitting on top of the hood, different intake manifold. The colors are different yet again, so there have been a couple of different versions in between as well, with like an American flag on the hood. And right now this is the very latest, and I have to say very accurate version of what the Hoonicorn currently looks like. Really, really cool. Some stuff has disappeared in the meantime, so there's no longer an association with Ken Block, but also a couple of new sponsors have appeared on this vehicle, and then of course a couple of new technical parts making it, I think, look really exceptionally cool. This is not an easy vehicle to replicate in 10 scale. There's a ton of different parts that do need to be completely accurate for it to actually look like a Hoonicorn. And I think that Team Associated, I already took the car out of the box that sits in front of me over here. I think Team Associated did an amazing job in capturing the look. Tons of features on the box as per usual. I'll make sure that you see those, but I won't waffle on too long about them because we're just gonna look at those when we look at the vehicle up close. It is fairly heavy. That really struck me. It feels like a quality piece of engineering. So, well, you know, this is the box. Let's put the box to the side. Let's go, as per always, let's go through some of the boring stuff first. This is Team Associated's ready-to-run radio that you will find included with all of their vehicles. So this is the XP120. Nothing really out of the ordinary. All of your trim switches and dual rate is right over here, located on the top, along with your reverse switches. Foam wheel on like a chrome rim type of thingy, just to give it some extra to look at. Grips well, takes 4 AA batteries. That is also something that isn't included. If you have the Hoonit truck, I think, or I believe that you get a LiPo battery and a charger included. And this one it comes ready to run, but it comes without those batteries. Also goes for this radio. You need to supply your own AA batteries. Not a big deal at all. Some extra parts over here. Spare spur gear. I'm thinking that this one is a locker for the center diff. So this thing has 3 differentials, one in the back, one in the center, and then one in the front. And I'm thinking that, I haven't read the manual, but I'm thinking that if you want to have a tiny bit more of an even distribution of power, that you put this little locker over here in that center differential, and you evenly distribute 50% of the power to the front and the rear, making it perhaps drift a tiny bit easier. The manual, also some stickers, and if you look at those stickers you will also see some Wilwood stickers. And these Wilwood stickers, those are for some faux brake calipers. So this is a vastly more detailed vehicle than you would perhaps initially expect. So seeing some of that stuff included is pretty cool. Let's look at how detailed this thing really is. This body, I have to say, looks absolutely amazing. Let's peel the plastic off real quick, just so you can have an even better look at it. If I separate it from the chassis, because we're going to look at the chassis anyway a bit later, you can see exactly how much detail went into not just designing this body, but also into producing it. There's a lot of injection molded plastic over here in the front. So over here you see those 2 Garrett turbos with a Switzer intake manifold. I think it looks fantastic. Very mean and very much true to its full-scale counterpart. Also these side trays with their carbon fiber replicated stickers. Yeah, it just really looks the part. And if you look a tiny bit closer to it, you will see that this front grille, this is an injection molded part. On the inside of those headlights there are light buckets, so I'm not sure if you need to scrape off some of the paint if you want to install an LED in there, or if it will just shine through the body more or less to illuminate the front. but the whole fact that this stuff is included, I think, is pretty cool. The air intakes on the sides, those are also made from some black plastic material along with these lower trays. So if this were to be a Lexan, for example, this would be roughed up, I think, pretty quickly. And seeing that this is done up in a black plastic makes it a lot more durable. Same goes for this rear diffuser. This, at first glance, you would think that this diffuser is attached to the chassis, but it actually comes off with the body. This whole part in the back, so that whole rear bumper, is, of course, if you see it coming out of the mold, impossible to make. So this entire section is separate. And you can see that when you look at the inside of the body shell in the back. Really nicely done, and all of the screws are hidden very well. So also those taillight clusters, these are used to kind of thread the hardware into from the inside. But also in doing that, it gives it some extra detail. So it goes for both of the taillights and then that center emblem section. Now, one thing that I don't really like is the fact that the windows are not see-through, but I'm almost thinking that this has become an industry standard in these more complicated paint schemes. This thing, of course, incredibly detailed. And then seeing that there's so much going on that body shell, I'm thinking that they need to dip this in some sort of way. And by doing so, it is perhaps impossible to apply a window mask or something. However, in this case, I don't really dislike those window stickers because I do think that it still looks somewhat realistic. So in brief, a very recognizable, super detailed, cool looking body on, well, perhaps even a cooler looking chassis. Let's go have a look at that. Now, below that body sits a to me new chassis because I've never seen an Apex2 up close. This should be completely identical, I think, to the Hoonitruck. First thing that I noticed was this receiver box with a hilariously small antenna tube. This thing is then coupled to this ESC that you see over here. This ESC, you can run it either on LiPos, which we of course all do, I think, these days, or you can run it on a nickel metal hydride pack if you think it's still 1976. It runs on 2 or 3S LiPos. Make sure that if you do want to run it on a nickel pack, that you take this tab out and that you put it in the other slot so it is set up correctly. If you want to run it on LiPos, it's set up correctly right out of the box. Dean's connector, I think everybody has some Dean's batteries laying around. And for the amp draw of this setup, this is not a dangerous connector to run at all. A Shorty pack accommodating battery tray with 2 Velcro straps to keep everything securely strapped down. And if you want to tune this ESC, because you could tune this Reedy ESC, you need to have a separate programming card. So perhaps you have one. If not, and if you want to explore some more options, get a separate program card so you can see what this thing does. This thing is coupled to a 550 sized 15-turn brushed motor, which is then connected to an aluminum motor plate, which you cannot see from the outside, but if you take the top of it off, also to have a look at your spur gear and your pinion gear, you will see that the motor plate is actually aluminum. So that's pretty cool. This is directly married then to this center diff. I'm not sure, again, if that locker is for the center diff or for the rear, for example, but I'm thinking it is for the center just to have an even power distribution. All of the ring and pinion gears in this entire setup are metal, along with full ball bearings throughout the entire chassis. So that way it's set up to run smooth and to also run very reliably. While we are on the subject of electronics, right below that ESC is a Metal Gear steering servo, 15 kilos of torque, which is of course plenty for an on-road vehicle like this. No included servo savers, but it does feature a double Ackerman to make sure that your vehicle actually steers. What I think is very interesting is this adjustable toe-in, toe-out on the rear. This is what they call an active setup rear suspension that is also tunable. So what that means is you can actually tune these 2 toe-in, toe-out bars to readjust the back of the car and make it brake traction a bit faster than it currently does, thus tuning it into a true 10 scale Hoonicorn, because the Hoonicorn is of course a car that goes completely sideways through tight spaces, and it's really more of a drift car than a race car. But if you want to race with this thing, that is also possible. But you will also see when you look at this chassis, doesn't matter which end you look at, if the top or the bottom, is that the lower A-arms front and back are completely identical, and also on the top those A-arms are completely identical. That of course makes it really easy to maintain it. You don't have to keep a ton of spares in order to keep this thing up and running. These are then the American Racing custom wheels. I think they complement the entire car nicely. This is of course a 1965 Mustang, and these look, I think, pretty much like a classic shape of wheel. And if you have a close look behind them, you will see a faux brake rotor and a faux brake caliper. I will be putting those Willwood stickers that you find along with the manual. I'll put those on those brake calipers just to add a tiny bit of extra detail. The chassis is 2.5 millimeters thick, should be able to withstand plenty of abuse. There is a bit of a foam bumper included in the front, which I think will help a tiny bit in case you do have an unfortunate impact. But of course, this is not a body that you really want to slam into a wall and go and do some crazy bashing with. This is, however, I think a car that will look fantastic doing some stunting in your local parking garage. So that's also exactly what I plan doing with it. I want to take this thing out to a parking garage, perhaps put up like a bit more of a technical track, and do some tiny gymkhana-ing with this 10-scale Hoonicorn by Team Associated. I hope you found this an informative video. In case I missed some stuff, which is of course always possible, let me know in the comment section. But also, if you want to read up more, whether that's about this Apex2 Hoonicorn or the Apex2 Hoonitruck, go check out the links in the video description box. I will make sure that they redirect you to the Team Associated website or to some other online store where you can purchase this thing and read up more on all of the features that it packs. I think it is fantastic to see this type of detail in the 10-scale vehicle with all of those injection molded parts. So not just the obvious stuff like those Garrett turbos, the intake manifold, but also those taillights, the diffuser, the grille section. It is just fantastically executed. I really like this thing, and I'm a huge Hoonicorn fan. Thank you so much for watching. In case you have not subscribed yet, please do, because it is free. If you have any questions, comments, let me know in the comment section. And in case you enjoyed this video, I hope you did, leave me a like. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Back on.